Welcome back to the channel. Today's video 25 and I'm going to start focusing on the back of the car. So I'm going to start removing the rear suspension, the exhaust pipe. I intend also to drop the differential and give it a bit of a clean up and a service, change the oil. Probably the first thing I'm going to start with though is the rear seatbelt mounts, which are completely rotten on the car, and most Excel owners will actually have to do this job at some point because they just mild steel and they rot away very quickly in terms of the age of the car. After about 10 years or so they're pretty much done. So removing them is a little bit awkward. You've got to remove all the rear seats, which is not too awkward, but then the bolts at the side, they can be awfully stiff and rotten, corroded to remove. So let's get started and have a look. So I've jacked up the right side of the car, and as you can see there, that is the remains of the right hand side rear seatbelt mount, the bottom one anyway. Still haven't quite got the bolt out yet, as you can see there. It's a bit of a mess trying to get this out. But, the way to get it out is from the inside of the car, so you have to remove the rear seats, which I'll show in another video, and then it's that bolt there, and there's another one there, but you have to counter hold them to get them out. So let me see if I can find something to counter hold that rotten bolt there. So I've decided to hold it with a set of mole grips. The socket wouldn't fit over there, it's too rusted away. So hopefully this will work. I'll undo it from the inside. Yeah, this isn't working, so I'm just going to cut it off with an angle grinder, I think. Try and be careful not to damage anything. Cutting that off was not fun, especially when you could obviously try and avoid damaging the fiberglass. But anyway, that side's done. I think the other side's going to be a little bit more difficult. Now, let me tell you, cutting those off was definitely not fun. I had to, the inner one there, I had to cut it first from the inside of the boot, sorry, inside of the back seat, and then cut it from, and I've got enough spindle out of there to cut it from here. So yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of rust patches and stuff on the floor. Hopefully the other side, I don't think it's as bad on the other side, so we'll have a look anyway, and hopefully they'll just unbolt without all these razzmatazz, but we'll see. This one doesn't look quite so bad. It's not as rotten as the other side, but I've just given it a little bit of a doze down with the WD, and let's see if that'll help. These brakes are going to have to come off as well, and have a look why that's scoring like that rather than wearing evenly. But, yeah, I've given also a lot of suspension linkages and nuts and bolts a bit of a doze down with WD, and then when it comes to taking them apart, hopefully it'll be a little bit easier. But let me have a try and undo those seatbelt mounting points. Yeah, unfortunately no such luck with those seatbelt mounts. They're going to have to be cut off as well. So, but not tonight. It's getting a bit too late, so I've had enough. And I'll put the wheel on and call it tonight. There's another thing I've noticed here. When it rains a lot, I'm getting quite a bit of water in the footwell there, and obviously car shouldn't leak like that. So I checked the door seal here, and at the bottom there it seems to have come out or loose. First I thought it was ripped, but it's not. So I'm going to try and loosen. I'll take this trim bit off here and put this seal back underneath that plastic bit there, and see if that stops it from leaking. Let me try that though. So there's 1, 2, 3, or 4 actually nuts to get out, sorry, bolts to get out. Let me try that. I gave these little screws a tap with the impact wrench to get them out, and they're coming out quite easily now. So yeah, they can be a bit notorious, those small screws. So I guess we'll have to see if time will tell next time it rains if that's fixed the issue or not. So dry up the inside there. We'll come back next time it rains and check if there's water in the footwell. So the first thing I'm going to do is just give it a clean down with soap and water, and then I'll give it a spray down, perhaps with a little bit of WD-40, see if I can get some of these nuts and bolts loose from in here. So let me get on with that. I'll start by removing the brake caliper, which is secured on my one 12mm nut there. Bolts there, sorry. Let me just use two hands to do that. Comes out. Then it just rocks forward like that and slides off the spindle. Like so. Rest that somewhere out of the way, then I'll try and undo these nuts. That one there. I'm under the car here and I just want to show you what I need to remove. And yeah, so I want to remove both of these arms, these supporting hub carriers. Obviously all the suspension on that side. I'm going to remove the exhaust pipes. I've got to remove this bit here as well, which seems to bolt on at the front there. So a couple of 5 bolts I think in total at the back and somewhere at the front, and then eventually when all the stuff is out, then I'm going to want to drop the diff as well and give that a bit of a clean up. So I would imagine let's try and get these arms off first, this side. So these nuts, and there's one at the front there as well, and then release it from the hub and see if this will drop out. That will also release this spring, which I might have to unbolt from the top, but we'll see about that anyway. But as you can see, it's all a bit, yeah, I guess that's the look of a what is it, 35-year-old car, something like that anyway. But there you go. Hopefully it'll look a lot better when I screw it together and paint it up and tidy it up a little bit. To get at that bolt there, I think I'm going to have to drop the exhaust a little bit with those 3 newish bolts and nuts and bolts at the front there. So let me undo those 3, and this should drop a bit and give me access to this nut here. I've managed to loosen it. It's been easily the most highly torqued bolt I've had to deal with so far. But anyway, I think I've done it without damaging it. So as you can see, the exhaust pipe is completely loose at the back end. But I have to remove both of these 2 arms here to even remove the exhaust. Get in there. I've stripped the suspension on this side, but I've been having an issue with one of the bolts that holds on this supporting arm there. It seems that the inside of the bush has seized to the bolt, and even if I put the gun, the Makita on there, because of the rubber bits absorbing the vibration, if you like, it's not coming loose. So I'm going to have to do the nuclear option here and grind off the head of the bolt on the backside and see if I can unscrew it by applying a lot of torque on this bolt here. Let's see how I get on. I'm going to start dismantling the left hand side of the car now to give me a bit more. Basically I want to remove that exhaust pipe from there because it's getting in the way. I could cut the bolts off there with an angle grinder, but access is difficult, so I think I'll just try and remove this arm first here and then just remove the exhaust pipe out, leave it out there, and that'll get me a bit more access to the awkward bushing there underneath on the other side for the wishbone underarms or whatever they are, supports. So I'll start with removing and displacing the brake. As I say, 112mm bolt at that side. Then I'm going to follow by, displace the brake first. Just put it up there for now until I take the spring off. Yeah, and then I'm going to remove this bit here now, which is held in by 2 bolts, one there and one there. Sorry, I'll remove the calipers first. Just note that the clip's at the top there. The other side. Remove the clips too. Just noticing that the bigger clips are on the outside. I'll show you the smaller clips when I remove both the bolts. Yeah, so the smaller clips on the inside there, they go on the back. Then the disc itself should just pull off, and it does, to reveal the handbrake mechanism. So the next bit to do is I'm going to remove these 2 springs here. They should just, with a screwdriver or with a pair of pliers, just pull off, and I'll put them in there. The spring itself sort of hooks in there, like so, and sort of pulls back over there. Same with the other one. To do it with 2 hands, I think. Then I'm going to remove the retainers for the shoes themselves, which is sort of these bits here. They're held on by a spring and like a little rod thing that sort of you push it in and twist it, and it comes out through these 2
through the gap here, which is a slot in the disc thing there. So I just have to push it in and twist it, and that should come out. Yep, so that's come out. So remove the cap as well, and the spring and the retainer. And also when I remove this sort of rod thing here, pin, that's come out. Now I want to be a little bit careful about the mechanism and how it all fits into place. So I'm seeing there's a spring there on the right hand side, plus that component there. So I think I'll at the bottom there, let's have a look. Yeah, so that just fits out. Ah, there's another spring here at the bottom too, so I need to remove it. Give us a sec. Spring yet, but there's the adjuster here as well, and that just slots into place. So that's for tightening the handbrake cable. It fits in like that. I'll remove the other side now. Twist there, give a bit more space. Let's see. Yeah. So I'll remove this one as well, much the same way as the other side. Cable itself is attached here at the bottom, and how it works is when the cable is forced sort of inwards, it creates a leverage mechanism and sort of forces the shoe out like that. So I have to remove, that's a circlip on the top there. Will I have to remove that? I don't know, but certainly the cable itself I'll have to remove. So to remove the cable, you sort of have to compress the spring, force the leverage mechanism backwards, then you can, it'll sort of slot out from there. Easy enough. That bit here just fits at the top between the shoes there, like that. The next thing I'm going to do is remove the handbrake cable, and we've got to compress these sort of splines here inside, and it should push out there. It's a little bit awkward to do this. It's gonna, and I'm going to do it off camera. Yeah, you sort of have to. On the other side, it was very awkward. But sort of thread that through there is probably the best approach I had, and see if I can sort of thread it through there. Otherwise, if I can't do this, I will remove the lower the hub itself first and attempt it afterwards. The cable's proven to be a little bit problematic. Even the screw that's holding this bit here, I need to drill that out. It's not going to come off, and then even just to thread it through there is also a bit awkward. So I'll move on to the shock and spring assembly. I'll remove this bolt here, which is counter held through by taking this rubber cover off and sort of putting a socket through there and counter holding that bolt there, and then the shock itself, I can move it forward and it'll allow me to get a ring spanner on the top to undo these two 17mm nuts here. Let me do that. Just like that. Got hold of the nut on this side, undoing it from there. You have to really sort of pull the shock to an angle to get a ring spanner on there. It's recommended to get a ring spanner on the top of that one because they're quite tightly done, but it's loose now. So I've undone those two nuts at the top of the shock, and comes off like that. The rubber separated by two pieces, two washers, and then the top bit is a similar situation. So one rubber bit separated by two washers, top and bottom of the chassis mount. I'll remove this bottom wishbone mount, hopefully now, at least displace it, because I still have to remove the handbrake cable. But so one bolt there, one nut and bolt there, and two on the inside, which I'll have to access from underneath the car. So I've levered the wishbone bit out here. I had to drill the bit that secures the handbrake cable on there. So now I should be able to get the angle grinder on the bolt at the other side, so it's keeping the wishbone in on that side. The one towards the front I couldn't take off even with the impact wrench, so I'm going to get the angle grinder on that and see if I can pull it through. So the war with the bolt and the angle grinder is finally over. It took me the best part of a couple of hours, but that beauty was never coming out of there without a fight. And yeah, the trouble is of course I had to do it without damaging anything, and yeah, it's pretty much intact. But I'm going to call it tonight. It's getting late. Continue maybe tomorrow morning. Continuing on from yesterday, I'm going to remove this link here, which will mean that the whole hub assembly will drop to the ground. It's moving this bolt, this nut and bolt here, and also remove that nut. That bolt will be difficult to get out, but I'm hoping that the impact wrench will allow me to take it out. Let me start with the bottom part of the link first. Just to note, there's 3 washers attached to that bolt there, and one big washer there, and this sort of spacer on that side. So this bar I'll just remove now. Now that that top linkage is removed, I'm going to remove the drive shaft, which is held on by 4 nuts. There's one of them. I can rotate it though to get to the other ones. I'll try and do this with the impact wrench. I think they're 14 millimeters. Just hammering that socket onto the nut properly there so it's seated properly. Yeah, just a note here that the thinner bit of the drive shaft, it looks a little bit thicker there than it does there. So the thicker bit bolts into the wheel hub, and the thinner bit bolts into the differential, which is that bit there. I'll remove this part now from the hub, and then try and remove the handbrake cable. This bolt here is proven to be a little bit problematic. I've just applied some heat to the bolt. Even with the Makita, it's not coming loose, and you know, a long lever as well, as long as I can muster, it's still not coming loose. So yeah, I'll let that cool down a bit. In the meantime, I'm going to remove that bit of that bar that sort of sits underneath the differential. So it's held in with 2 bolts in the middle. The bolts at the front have been released already, and some bolts, about 3 bolts that bolt onto the bodywork underneath the car. So to remove this bottom bar here, there's 3 bolts at the back which are counter held by nuts in the boot, and there's these 2 here. The ones at the front were connected to the bushings of the wishbone support arm, so they're already undone. So once I get these 5 bolts out, this metal bit should drop off and it will expose then the differential. Plenty of crud and crap to clean up there, built up over probably 30 odd years. I'm still struggling to loosen this bolt here. On the other side I've managed to loosen it with the Makita. I've also applied heat to the bolt on this side. Hasn't loosened yet, and I've even tried it with a long bar. Yeah, I'll charge the Makita up properly again and try again. But if anybody's got any tips on how I might be able to loosen that, then please feel free to comment. I think I'll conclude this video for today. I'm pretty much at a point now where I can start removing the differential, which needs a good clean up. And yeah, I'll drop the differential, give it a paint, give it a rub down with a wire brush, and then give it a paint and put it back in, give it a service as well, of course, and see how we get on from there. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and please subscribe to the channel if you get a chance.